Hey, it's Brian Rodgers, founder and head pit master of Fool's Gold Plant-Based Barbecue. That's right, I said plant-based barbecue. So here we go with another one of our recipes. Today we're going to be doing one of the main sides that you'll find on almost any barbecue menu pretty much in the world, any home barbecue pretty much anywhere in the world. If you go to any cookout or whatever in Kansas City, Memphis, Texas, wherever, you're almost always going to find one particular side dish, and that's baked beans. I've never done this recipe before on film. I've never written it down. So I'm going to give you the exact recipe I use. In fact, this is the first recipe that I modified when I went plant-based and lost 120 pounds and reversed 6 life-threatening diseases in just 6 months. I was close to 300 pounds. Obviously, as you can see, I'm not 300 pounds anymore. I lost a lot of weight by modifying my old school Kansas City style recipes to fit plant-based barbecue. So we're going to be doing my Brian's Kansas City pit beans. So here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is, that I always like to do, is I like to cut up my onion and my apple. Yes, I use an apple in my beans. I always have, always will. So I'm going to go ahead and just give this onion a chop real quick. I like to use white onions. You can use red onion, you can use yellow onion, you can use green onion. I don't recommend that, but you can if you like. So we're going to go ahead and cut up an onion. This recipe calls for 1 onion chop. So as you get it done here, you just want to peel that off. I am really cooking live on this show. Don't have an assistant or anything, so I'm doing everything myself. So it does take a little bit more time. So let me peel that onion off there real quick. If I was cooking for a lot of people, I'd probably be using gloves or whatever, but I'm cooking for my own family today, so I'm not going to use any gloves. So we're going to cut this onion up. There's a lot of ways to cut onions. Most chefs prepare onions the way I just did. Some people go ahead and slice them this way and then sideways one more time. Some people will do cuts like this, like they'll hold right down here, and they'll do like some cuts like this as well. There's all kinds of different ways to do onions, but I'm going to do them this way today. I'm going to go ahead and cut them this way, cut them this way. I just want to do them really fast for the video, for the show. So we're going to go ahead and just dice these up real quick. Dice an onion. Do this in a food processor. You could do it with a knife. I've cut a lot of onions in my time, so don't feel bad if you can't do them that quick. Or if you're probably watching this going, whatever, I can dice onions way faster than you, Brian. So, and that's great. But for this, we just want a kind of a rough dice, something like that, because we do want some texture with the onions in our beans. Onions are one of the key ingredients to beans, and to pretty much all pit beans. So let me just go ahead and give this a cut real quick. Hey, my knife's much sharper now. I realized on a video I did a little bit ago, I had forgotten to sharpen my knife, and it's funny how a sharp knife now does the trick. So go ahead and chop these onions up. And then what I like to do with my beans is a lot of people like to use mixing bowls. I like to mix my beans directly in the pan I'm going to smoke them in. I don't know why I like that, but that's just always how I've done it. So I have a pan here of navy beans. I don't use the Instapot a lot, but I love the Instapot for baked beans. You take navy beans and I mix some Fool's Gold seasoning in it, some barbecue sauce, and I cook them down just like this. You can also use canned beans. There's a particular kind of canned beans that are vegetarian. I think they're by Bush's, but don't quote me on that. They're just as good. So you can use 2 cans of beans for this, or you can cook them down in like your Instapot or on a stove. So for this, I have about approximately a pound of beans, something around there. So I'm going to go ahead and put this aside for a second while I cut my apple. And this is one of the ingredients that I've always used in my beans. I learned this actually from an old school guy in Kansas City named Benny that owned a barbecue restaurant, and he used to put apples in his baked beans. So I started doing it, and it amazingly it gives great sweetness without adding a lot of sugar and things to your baked beans. These are probably the healthiest baked beans you'll you'll ever see. A lot of people put a lot of sugar and ketchup and molasses and all that nasty stuff that, actually when I say nasty stuff, I used to love it, and it's still good, but I can't eat it anymore. High fructose corn syrup, all that stuff, not good for your body. So we're going to take this apple and we're going to give this a dice as well. So we're going to cut that up a little bit. Again, this doesn't have to be done. I don't want these to really be uniform or anything. I just want kind of a decent dice on them. So dice those up a little bit. One trick on an apple is to cut the meat side of the apple. It's a lot easier. Some people will cut the skin side of the apple, but a lot easier to cut the meat side of the apple. So again, we're going to give these a dice. Just again, a rough dice, like so. I leave the skins on the apple. I use Gala apples. I've always used Gala apples. Feel free to use green apples, use red delicious apples, whatever kind of apples you can find. Feel free to use them. I like Gala apples. I think they're the perfect sweetness and tartness. So I'll chop these up real quick. And there we go. I'm going to just give these all kind of just a rough chop, like so. Just like that. All right, and that's good to go. In fact, I'm going to give my apple a taste. I'm kind of hungry right now. Really sweet too. So we're going to bring our beans back over here, and I'm going to put the beans down here, and I'm going to slide all this right into the beans. All the onion, all the apples, everybody gets into the pool. So there we go. Now we're building our baked beans. Next, we're going to put in 1 tablespoon of all-purpose Fool's Gold seasoning. This is my competition rub. It's only available in our family kit online. I highly recommend trying out our rubs. They're all salt-free, sugar-free, plant-based. If you have, high blood pressure, things like that, like I did, I had to cut all the salt out of our rubs. I've now been able to add salt back in, so I came up with a line of smoked salts. But if you can't use salt, that's great. Just use these rubs. If not, I recommend low salt, low sugar rubs, which are pretty hard to find these days. Let's go ahead and put 1 tablespoon of that in. We're going to put a tablespoon, I'm using our smoked hickory salt for this, so we're going to put that in real quick. And then we're going to use 1 tablespoon of Demerara sugar, Fool's Gold Demerara sugar. Throw that in there. And we're going to use a tablespoon of chopped garlic. So a tablespoon of chopped garlic. Notice I put no honey. I put no honey in it, no molasses in it, no brown sugar in it. It doesn't need it. We're going to use the Fool's Gold barbecue sauce. We're going to use the Demerara sugar for the flavor that we're trying to get at, and then we're going to use the smoke. A lot of people will put liquid smoke in here. Do not use liquid smoke. Just put real smoke in your food. Smoke your beans. Smoke your food. Don't use liquid smoke. So that's all in. Another secret ingredient that I've always used in my beans, you won't even know they're in there when it's done, but it also adds more sweetness to it, is dried cranberries or raisins. You can use whatever you have. I use the craisins, the dried cranberries. We're going to throw those in there. And then we're going to use one of my secret ingredients. I've been using this since I was 8 years old. I hardly use any oil in any of my recipes. I don't saute with oil. I use vegetable broth or just the natural moisture in things. The one place I do use a little oil, I use sesame oil in my beans. I've always done this. It gives them a crazy flavor. When I've entered these beans into all kinds of barbecue competitions back in Kansas City, or I give it to friends, or we bring it to picnics, or whatever, everybody says, Brian, I can taste the smoke. I can taste the Kansas City barbecue. But there's something about the beans that I can't quite put my finger on that tastes different than any other beans I've ever had. And the reason for that is the secret ingredient. And it's only a tablespoon of sesame oil. So put that in there. And last but not least, I use 2 cups. That's a lot, but we're making a lot of beans here. If you're just making it for a few people, it's It adds up in calories if you're eating 2 cups of barbecue sauce, but you're only going to be eating a little beans. These are going to be so rich, you're not going to be able to sit down and eat beans like you can a bowl of cereal. At least I probably could, but most people probably can't. So what we're going to do is the Fool's Gold barbecue sauce. I haven't told you much about it up to this point, but when I went to recreate my barbecue sauce, when I went plant-based, one of the things I had to do was take a lot of the ketchup and the high fructose corn syrup and the honey and things like that out of the sauce to make it plant-based, healthier, and just better in general. And it made the sauce a lot thinner. So the sauce is pretty thin, which I happen to like thin sauce. It's more like a lot of people in Texas use a thinner sauce. So it's a thinner barbecue sauce, as you'll see. So it's a little thinner. So what that means is if you need something to really be kind of thicker, like if you want a thicker baked bean or something like that, the sauce gets a little watery, I guess you could say. So what you want to do is you want to use a little bit of cornstarch. So I use about a teaspoon of cornstarch, and I'll just go ahead and put that in the barbecue sauce ahead of time. You can also just mix it in your beans too. But I use a little bit of cornstarch, and I kind of get that started in my barbecue sauce here. So you can kind of see how that looks. And it'll thicken the sauce up, and as it cooks in the beans, it'll thicken up even more. And if you do like Fool's Gold, but you want to thicken it up for some recipes, then feel free to just use a little cornstarch. No problem at all. Again, there are some calories and stuff in cornstarch, but when you use it as like just a little thickener and you're making a lot of food, it doesn't really add up too much. So that's it. So you mix your cornstarch up here, and then I dump that into the beans, just like so, and then mix it all together. And that's really the recipe. So we're going to mix all this stuff together really good. All the apples and raisin, the dried cranberries, and the rub, and the demerara sugar, and the garlic all mixes together really nice. So mix that up really, really good. And beans are one thing to where you can smoke them, even the beans, for up to 5 hours sometimes if you wanted to, or you can smoke them for 30 minutes. It's kind of all about preference on beans. I make these for all kinds of different picnics and school events, and I'm always taking beans everywhere. To my next door neighbor who's been sick lately, I've been bringing them some baked beans and stuff for their freezer. And so they don't like as much smoke in them, but I love smoke. So I typically like to smoke my beans for about 3 hours. My wife likes it about an hour. So it just kind of depends on your level of smokiness that you want. So that's really it. I'm actually going to smoke these beans on the Traeger today, and I'm going to smoke them for 3 hours. But these beans can also be smoked on our range top smoker. It can be smoked in the oven in our wood infused bags. Now, if you do smoke beans in our bags, you don't just pour the beans into the bag. You need a bean bag, right? You need to put the whole pan into our wood infused pans before putting them into the oven or over the campfire. So that's really important. So that's what they're going to look like, and I'll show them to you. We'll go out to the smoker now, and I'll show you what they look like when we're done. So let's go to the smoker. All right, so we're going to do these on the Traeger today. I own 3 Traeger grills, but I really like this one. And in fact, a lot of times it's one of the portable ones. I take this with me when I go up to the mountain skiing sometimes. If it's like really, really cold, or I'm in a place I haven't been in a while, I don't really know where the good campsites and places I can cook are, then I'll bring this with me. I'll just carry it in my car with me. And it runs on wood pellets. So I'm going to smoke these today for about 3 hours at 225 degrees and just let it go. So we'll see in a little bit. All right, here we are 3.5 hours later, and our beans are done. About halfway through, I actually came in and I transferred some of the beans into a little bit smaller pan, and I cooked the other ones separately in our other smoker, just because I wanted to see how they would come out. I added some other stuff to the other beans. I added some seitan bacon, actually. So this is what the beans look like. Oh my God, they look amazing. And let's go inside and I'll show you how I finish the beans. But that's exactly how I want them to look, with kind of that crust on the top, and I'll show them to you inside. All right, here we are back in the kitchen. Oh my goodness, these smell so good. Let me show you what I do once the beans come out. This is kind of hot, but not terrible. I smoked them at 225. But notice how you see kind of this crust on here. That's exactly what you want on your beans. So we're going to take that crust and you want to mix that all in. That's exactly what you want. Mix that all in and it'll start steaming. Get all that crust off of there. Oh my goodness. As one of my idols used to say, as a little kid, I used to watch him. He was a guy named Justin Wilson, a chef named Justin Wilson. He was a Louisiana chef, and he used to say, he used to smell his food and say, "I guarantee." Well, that's how I feel about these beans right now. These look absolutely amazing. And notice the dark, you can kind of see it looks like the dark baked beans. Well, those are the craisins. A lot of people say, "Oh, you put black beans in there." Well, no. That's literally the craisins, and they taste like baked beans. So, oh my gosh, these look so good. That's how I do my baked beans, but I have to try these before we go. Oh my gosh. Those are so good. I've been making these, like I told you, since I was 8 years old. Now I figured out a way to make them where they're healthier, they're plant-based, they're amazing. We use these beans. We have leftovers of these beans all the time. We put them on nachos, we put them on tacos, we put them in wraps, we put them on salad. These beans are amazing, cold or hot. So that's our Brian's Pit Smoked Barbecue Beans. Hit the subscribe button right now and subscribe to the Fool's Gold Plant-Based Barbecue Show, and I'll be seeing you soon on some future videos.